This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you by Ministering to Youth Conference. Imagine for a moment that you are surrounded by mountains next to a peaceful stream in the cool air of the fall. It's hard to imagine a better place. But what if that place was filled with other people who had the same mission that you do? People focused on helping the youth of today live out their faith in Christ. That place is M2Y, the Ministering to Youth Conference, located at the Mainstay Suites in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, on November 4th through the 7th. You will be surrounded by youth ministers, elders, deacons, preachers, youth volunteers, and parents that all have a common goal: ministering to youth. This year, the theme is Renew. The keynote speakers are Dan Chambers and Spencer Furby, along with several other class teachers who will be tackling subjects on mental health, technology, self-care, navigating culture, and so much more. Go to m2yconference.com to register or benandtravis.com/m2y for more information. Travis and I hope to see you there.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis. We are back for part 2 of our interview with Kenya Hayes, and she's not giving us a whole lot of dirt on you, Ben, just yet. So you got to be doing pretty good, right?
That's exactly right. Are you saying that there's dirt on me?
Of course not. Of course not.
On me? Come on.
Just don't want to make him look bad on his own show.
It's just if there is dirt, she knows it. And we're not leaving until we, as a little bit of a teaser, get some stories about Ben Hayes trying to coach Kenya. We're not leaving. So go ahead and get that story tuned up because I'm ready. But we're talking a little bit about a
better athlete than you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, she's the best athlete on the podcast right now. I mean, it's right. Not even close. But last episode, we opened up a little bit about y'all's story about your youngest son, Cypress, and his battle with, call it what, spitzoid melanoma. Is that correct? Wow. I never remember anything. So that's pretty impressive. And kind of going through that process of getting it removed from his face and getting to St. Jude and kind of going through that process. I'm interested to know, because I mean, it's a traumatic thing for adults who really kind of understand what's going on. I'm interested to see maybe how much you felt like Cypress understood what's going on, maybe how he communicated it and dealt with it, and then how much you guys let him in on things and how you let him in on things. Because, man, that's got to be difficult. I know that with my own story, there was parts of it I didn't want to know, and I was glad I didn't know, Yeah. And so to strike that balance with a kid so young, I think you said he was like 9 months old, which, I mean, that limits the communication anyways. But, how did you guys handle that?
Oh, the after has been more with him. We've had conversations with him after, because he has to go for checkups and he doesn't always know. And so it's kind of been interesting to see him grow up at St. Jude almost, because when we go, it's like he remembers it, but each time he's a little bit more mature about it, And the first thing he hated beyond anything, and which is funny because I hated him too, I still hate him even I'm an adult, is a blood pressure cuff. Like, blood pressure cuffs are just the weirdest thing to me. Like that squeeze they put on your arm and it's right on that nerve. Well, they would always do that with him, and he would just completely freak out. Yeah. That was the one thing.
And they would try it on his leg, and
it didn't matter. And they would never could get it. They were always like, we can't get a blood pressure reading, because he was so crazy about it. And then, when he finally kind of like settled down on that was pretty cool. I guess the biggest thing was really helping the other kids understand it. When we first started going and they didn't, why are we having to do this?
Well, Kenny, I'm interested, because a lot of times as dads, and I know you're kind of this way too, you're an athlete, it's kind of suck it up, buttercup. Hey, we got to press on, with my son, it's like, all right, dude, we got to just be tough, and I just wonder, like, from a mom's standpoint, it is different. I mean, I would be willing to guess it's different. I find that would be so that would be so hard. Cause I mean, once again, we're kind of, at least when we grew up being, and I think before us, maybe now people are a little more in tune with their feelings. But, kids look to their mom. How bad is it? How is mom reacting to it? And so I'm just kind of interested to know your balance and how you approach that, and I think that flows over to the other kids and kind of answers what Ben's talking about. You got to be this person you're supportive emotionally, but you also have to kind of put on a strong face. And so how did you guys as a couple kind of deal with that? It's like strong face, communicate with the kids, and then behind closed doors, not to get too much in your business, how did you guys come together through that? Because there's a lot of couples who it pushes them apart.
I mean, I'm thankful that ours was not any more serious than it was. And we have to, I don't want anybody out there listening to it thinking that we think we had it on the same level that other people do. We would go up for a weekend at a time, or I'd say a weekend, but 2 or 3 days, in the middle of the week, and do our stuff. I guess the initial surgery was a little longer, that sort of thing, but we were never really away from family. We would go up there, spend a couple of days, come home, go back for a checkup a few weeks later, come home. And so I guess we didn't face that as much as a lot of couples, because we knew people who had surgery the same day who they didn't go home for, that little girl didn't go home for 9 months. That's a whole different ballpark, I think.
I know that the very first time that we went to St. Jude, I think that was the hardest, because we didn't know what to expect. And once we got there, I was glad to be there, but at the same time, I was like, it was just such an emotional time. And it came a big snow. It was like the only snow that we had that year. And
the kids are all here and we were up there.
I was full of guilt the whole time, because, here we are in this big snow that we wanted, and, all winter, and now we're not there with the kids to enjoy it. And we took Cypress out in front of the Bass Pro Shop and took some pictures of him in his snowsuit, but he was young. He didn't understand. I think he was 1. He had already turned 1.
He had just turned 1. Yeah.
Because he was 1 in December when he had his first surgery. And this was in February.
Yeah. I think we did an initial assessment up there in January, I think. And then right between Dallas CYC and the regular CYC was the surgery. Because I remember I went to Dallas, and then we went to Memphis, and then
when you had it right before.
Yeah, you didn't get to go to the CYC in Pigeon Forge, so it was it was in that kind of time frame, and that was tough. But to answer your question too about dealing with him with it is, we've just explained to him, and we'll talk to him about his scar, and of course I'm going to be that guy. Me. His nickname was Stitches for a long time because he had big stitches down his face. And, I got grief from that. So whatever, I'm sure people on the podcast will also give me that. But the other day I said something about, hey, Stitches. And he goes, that was my nickname. So he still remembered it, because I would just say that. But, he's still got a scar that runs down his face, and it's not as noticeable. If you get out in the sun, you can see it sometimes. And I don't think the story's completely done. The surgeons have talked about, go ahead and doing like a plastic surgery to fix that at some point, but it's not necessary.
Man, I was going to say, I mean, it's impressive to me, considering, I don't know if you guys have pictures posted or whatever of when it first happened, and you're thinking, man, that's going to be, that I'm sure there was some anxiety over, man, that's a big deal. I mean, that's a big deal. And, now, unless right, you wouldn't know, I know that it's probably, you guys probably see it more than anybody, but being somebody who's sees him every once in a while, you would have never guessed that he had something done on his face, And so I guess that leads me to what you mentioned. What about the other kids? You've got, some of them are really close to his age. Some of them were older. And so, what was the difference there? You probably had some they probably rallied around him. I mean, he's not like that point where one of them, he's get over, he's a little kid, he's getting all the attention. But, how did you communicate it to them at the different levels? Because you kind of got one at every level, So how'd you communicate to the siblings?
We were just honest with them, and we didn't let on our fears. We didn't let them see that, but we let them know we were concerned. Yeah. And some of them were too young to really understand. And like that first visit there, it's like, when are you coming home? Are you going to get to play in the snow with us? And which just added to my guilt.
Yeah.
But then like Stana went with us on several because she was not in school yet. So if we would go up there, she would go up there with us. And so she kind of grew up going to St. Jude a little bit too, so she sort of maybe even had some more understanding than some of the other ones, because she was watching what they were doing to him, and she was being a little nurse mama too, and helping, kind of keep him occupied while we were up there. And so she was a lot of part of it, but certainly it was different for the older ones too.
But overall, they handled it well. And
I think it'd have been different if we'd have been away for months at a time or weeks,
for sure.
And it would have been different for us had she had to be up there. But I think every time until COVID, really, COVID has not allowed us to both go up there. You only have one that can go. And so she's not going to let me be the one. She's going to be the one to take her baby up there. But, when before that, we always tried to go together. And like I said, it was usually a 2-day experience. We'd have a couple of doctor's appointments one day, a couple on the next. And so we go up there together. So I think that was always good. We always kind of had each other and could bounce the ideas off of each other and questions and whatever else.
Thankful for you that it's not worse, and we hope that it stays that way. Any advice that you'd give, even as a counselor, Ben, or as a mom, Kenya, which I think technically mom and counselor are kind of the same thing to a large degree, at least in my situation, for somebody out there that's going through it, ways in which you guys handled it really well, and then maybe ways that you didn't.
I think for me, the biggest thing was not to get ahead of yourself with anything. And I think I see that as a counselor, but I see it with things like this. Is it's so easy when you hear, like we said before, St. Jude, that your mind starts taking you to all the worst case scenarios. And I think we all do that with a lot of different things, but certainly with health concerns there's a difference in preparing yourself or thinking about what can I do versus this is what it is. We can certainly turn a difficult time into a very dark hour very quickly by taking on too much at one time or thinking about what it could be, because at the point where they said it, we don't know what that means, and we've talked about, the equation on here before, A plus B equals C, instead of, what has happened equals my life. It's not really that. It's what happens and the way I think about it equals it. So I could sit there and let all the worst case scenarios come into my brain about what it's going to be. And that's only going to make matters worse. So I think when you get a diagnosis or you get anything really in life that happens, I think you have to first sort of stop and realize what it is versus what it could be, and not let the could be's take over. Does that kind of make sense?
The evil could be's. Yes.
They have a tendency to, really, that's that whole, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough concerns of its own, don't get ahead of yourself too much on those things. We allow our minds to go way too much into the future when it's only going to rob us of today. when we do that?
Well, as a mom, I would say, and I'd heard this before. I mean, even before we had kids, I had another mom tell me one time, she said, moms know best, always trust your instinct. And that was the case with him. Because, even after the first doctor, told me, oh, well, it's this. And I just kind of accepted it, but I still had that gut feeling that that wasn't right. And thankfully, this other doctor brought it to my attention. And so, now, I mean, if I have a question about something, if I don't like what one doctor, or, I'm not sure about what one doctor says, I'll go to another one.
Gotcha.
And just follow your instinct. And then as far as like having younger kids and dealing with it, I think just be honest with them. Like we've always just tried to be honest with our kids about things that are going on, and not try to hide things from them. I mean, not in a
Where they
like
can
a,
handle it,
yeah,
on their
exactly.
level, right?
Right.
Give them what they can use, what they can
Right.
handle and can do. So, yeah. The other thing I would say to people is that are going through it is don't be afraid to let people help you. Cause I mean, it really does. I think for me, it was somewhat of a pride thing. Like when they first started talking about what all they were going to do, I was like, I'm not in the same scenario as these other people. And even today, still when they offer some of the vouchers and some of the different things, that when you get there, it's just kind of hard to take it, but I've been told in that scenario and in others, this is why it's there. It's there for you. So if you're one, and especially, if you're somebody who is going to St. Jude because of those doctor's appointments, you've got a child that's sick, it's there. That's why the people are donating to these runs. Travis doesn't make any money. I don't make any money. The other people don't make any money off these things that we donate or that we do. In fact, you can donate straight through the app, the St. Jude app or a website through our run page. And it doesn't go to us. I mean, I don't even see the money. I love it that way. It goes straight to St. Jude. And that's why people donate. That's why you donate out there, is to help, these families, because a lot of them are going to struggle to pay their bills. We didn't have to do that. The Lord blessed us. We didn't have to live up there. But there's a lot of people who have to live up there for 6 months or a year or for several years. And, they may have somebody back at home working, or they may not. And, your donations, anybody's donations towards St. Jude goes to help with gas money and food money and a lot of other things. So it's certainly money well spent when you donate it.
Family devotional time, fulfilling, organized, fun. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. Moses' words in Deuteronomy 6:4-8 to the children of Israel in the speech that closed out not only his ministry, but also his life, can be overwhelming at times and make us as parents feel like we could be doing more to disciple our children. In the fast-paced life that we live, we're usually just happy if everyone makes it out the door with their shoes on the correct feet. Planning and executing a family devotional time can seem out of reach. We're here to help. The Helping Healing Humor podcast has a tool to help you plan, organize, and execute a fulfilling and fun family devotional time for every member of your family, from toddler to teen. As a member of the Ben and Travis Patreon community, you will have access to tons of content at a small price that will help you grow your spiritual life, disciple your family, or even lead a small group Bible study. Patreon membership fees will help our podcast continue to be better and support the cost of creating and publishing the content that our Helping Healing Humor community has enjoyed. Go to www.patreon.com/Ben and Travis to sign up. Hit the link in the show notes for this month's special offer.
I would add, not that it needs any addition, but celebrate the victories. it is so easy. And sometimes I feel silly, post stuff on Facebook or whatever that I've made it this far, this, that, and that. But it's like, no, like that's kind of what that's for. Celebrate the victories. You're here, you're breathing air, use the vouchers. You're here, you're breathing air, celebrate. That's what those things are for, is to, help alleviate some of the struggle. And there are varying degrees of struggle. But whatever gets you to take that foot in front of the other, we hope that this podcast helps people do that.
I don't know that we mentioned, like, when they did the second surgery, that they actually took some lymph nodes out just to make sure that it hadn't spread into those. And when, you're talking about not worrying about the future and just focusing on today, I know that it's not very likely that this can come back, even though it can come back. But, there's days I catch myself, what if this comes back, or like every little spot that comes up on it. I'm just, a little more paranoid about it, just I'm more aware. And I know at first, like, it was like every little spot, like we would call St. Jude.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's awesome about them, is like they're always available, even for just something silly.
And almost always it's not a we'll call you back. It's let me get you to the right person.
Yeah.
They're like, they'll keep you on the line till you get that person. It's not we'll call you back in 48 hours or 72 hours or whatever. Sometimes they'll say we'll call you back, but most of the time it's within a couple of hours when they call.
They get on it. Yeah.
Not 48
awesome.
to, whatever. And so, that was huge too, just to be able to, but I remember every time I'd see a spot, I'd start.
I still do it occasionally, and I'll just keep an eye on it.
Understandably. Thankful for you guys sharing your story. I'm glad to learn a little bit more about it. Kenya, have you got a good story you can tell on Ben? I mean, have you got,
you know the story you want to hear, Travis?
I know the story I want to hear, but she may, I probably interjected too much already. So, if she's got one that she'd rather share, I want to give her the opportunity.
You share more than one, but
and then I can tell the story I want to tell if she doesn't want to do it. She wants to skip the play-by-play.
It's the worst Ben story you can tell.
I don't know. I do like the one about.
So it was church league softball. Yeah. For some reason, they asked me to coach, probably because they knew they wouldn't listen to me. And I'm coaching third base. And I don't remember. Did you hit it, or were you on first?
No, I hit it.
Okay, yeah. Of course. So she hits the ball and she's rounding third base, which tells you something about where she hit the ball.
Also, it makes it a little more understandable. That makes it a little more understandable.
All right, so go ahead.
Yeah, so he's telling me to stop, and I
knew,
and I knew I could make it, so I just kept going, and I made it. I was safe.
Just blew through the hold sign.
He gives me a hard time, but my coach in high school always told me that he trusted me. So if I thought I could make it, to do it, not to listen to him. And so if I didn't have to listen to my high school coach, then.
See, I remember this slow motion. Like, I feel like I was in the dugout. I don't know if I was helping you, coach. I don't even know if I was there, but I'm pretty sure I was there. And, I just see Ben, he's giving it. He's, he's got enthusiasm, like, no. And she just,
I think Sonny Owens was there because he gave me grief about it too.
No eye contact, no nothing.
So
and she scored. She was right. So,
I mean, I can't argue too much with that, but no submitting to your husband on that play. So she just blows it out of the water. So, anyway, some of these guys that are in the pros that keep getting thrown out this year on really dumb plays that I've been watching the last couple of weeks, I guess they don't know as well as she does.
They don't know anything on Kenya. They ain't got nothing on Kenya. I will say also about Kenya, you never wanted to play her in flag football.
She
ran knees high, and if you ever
she did. She always tells me she did not, but she did.
She did. I mean, I don't think you did on. I don't think.
I'm not slowing down.
I don't think it was on purpose. It's just how you were taught to run. You're an athlete. Any athlete who runs is going to run knees high. Especially
not going to. You hear her excuse was you jumped in front of me, so
that's
I'm going to run
true.
You're supposed to avoid
Kenya is the reason why the flag football rule, the offense is supposed to avoid the defensive player if the offense has the ball, the offensive player has the ball. She's the meaning behind that rule. But I've dove in front of large men and not been as afraid as trying to stop Kenya in a flag football game and like squaring her up, and she's running, I mean, knees high, and I've been probably trucked on many occasions. So that's awesome stuff. Good memory lane, Freed Hardeman days. And I am going to say this, and I'm sure you know this, Kenya, but Ben tried to set us up, right? Like,
yeah.
I
remember that.
I didn't tell that story the other day to somebody.
I think
this could have been a whole different podcast.
Yeah, it could have been a whole different podcast, but things go the way they go. But man, we need to have you on some more, Kenya. Maybe we just need legendary Kenya stories. We didn't even get into the throw the basketball down the court and like land flat on your face.
That's great. Video from high school, wasn't it?
Yeah.
She played for Freed Hardeman. There's some days playing softball for Freed that were pretty brutally cold, to the point of a guy from Alaska sitting with us and talking about how cold it was.
Nice.
We had electric blankets in the dugout. It was so cold.
So you have the throw the ball down the court in basketball and falling on your face. Ben has the sliding into. What base was that? You slid into third
base is the bad place for me apparently, because I did a nosedive.
You scorpion kinged it. It's got the scorpion legs over the top. Face first, legs over, ankles overhead, like over the back.
Braves fans out there, Dansby Swanson did that the other day at third base. He didn't really scorpion. He didn't get the technique as good as I did, but he did scuff his nose up on the dirt coming into third base. And I got several messages about that going, hey, I've seen that before. So,
well, it takes talent, Ben. It takes talent, and you got
it. You got to get the legs hitting the back to really get it.
I got asked today about my most embarrassing moment, and it also came on the Freed Hardeman flag football field. When my flag and my button got ripped completely off and my pants fell down to my ankles.
I'm pretty sure you scored a touchdown.
I still scored. Yes. I still scored because it was serious business, but
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, Kenya, thank you for putting up with us in our third grade elementary humor, but thank you for coming on and sharing your story about Cyprus and sharing some practicality and encouraging those out there who may be going through the same.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.